near you.
Yay! Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Spiritual Street Talk with Alethea Jacob. I am Alethea, and I am delighted that you are joining me tonight for another one of our wonderful episodes. So today, one of the topics that I had thought I would cover is why we love Marvel movies or any of that whole genre of adventure movie, hero's journey type movie. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Wanted to give a shout out to Chris and Mary. They are behind the scenes. They're helping out, get things going once in a while, but I'm trying to learn how to run this show solo. So I ask for your patience and indulgence, and hopefully it'll all work okay. I'm not seeing any comments, so I don't know whether I am actually having that on or not, but hopefully if you're there, send a comment, let me know you're there, subscribe to all those fun social media things. I'm just back from an amazing time in Sedona. I had my the retreat, a workshop that I was co-teaching down there this weekend. Oh, hey, Blair, thank you. Roger, thank you for saying something so I know that the chat's working. So as y'all probably remember from last week, I'm trying to learn the ropes of how to do the behind the scenes things as well as the in front of the camera things. And let's just say it's a lot easier for me to talk to y'all than to figure out how to do, what buttons to press and what to click on when. But we're working on it. Oh, we have Virgil saying hi from Manchester, England. Well, welcome, Virgil. You've come a long way. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm glad you're joining us. So the retreat went phenomenally well. Only had a few people that came in from California for it, but it was really a nice opportunity to tune into the energies, to do all the things that we had planned as far as the agenda and the topics to cover. But being in that beautiful energy of Sedona was just fabulous. And one of the things I wanted to share with y'all is some inspired writing that came through while I was in Sedona, because I thought, well, let me see if I can ask for a message while I'm here for everybody. And so besides picking the cards and doing the normal angel cards and oracle cards and tarot card messages for the group tuning in tonight or whenever you're listening in or watching, I also have something that came through that was really profound. So I wanted to share it, and I hope it will touch your hearts and mean something to you as well. So I asked Spirit, what messages are here for us to perceive in this beautiful, majestic place of Sedona? And so it came through. Love is the only true power in the universe. Fear in all forms and expressions diminishes or blocks our capacity to love. Self-mastery is not possible without self-love. That was something for me. Kindness, forgiveness, understanding and acceptance, and allowing are various forms and expressions of love of self, love of others, love of life, and love of what is beyond life. The childlike wonder, playfulness, curiosity, that perpetual presence in the moment, the ability to forgive, forget, and move on, to share our toys, to hug and help each other, the excitement and celebration at our collective as well as individual accomplishments. This childlike way of being in the world is essential to remember and re-embody, even if it was not present for you in this lifetime. That was another one of those ahas, because just because we may or may not have had those kind of blessings or that kind of experience as a child doesn't mean we can't claim it now, even as adults, because we've seen children do that. We've seen animals at play. We've seen the innocence and the being in the moment. Be grateful for it all and see it as the story it is, and how in retelling it in the future, your experiences and perceptions upon your journey will be useful in encouraging curiosity, play, and going for it in others. Demystifying or normalizing the journey makes it more accessible, more meaningful, and more purposeful, even if you can't anticipate its relevance as you are living it. Be at peace. You are where you are meant to be, and the way forward is prepared with love and gratitude. So that came through, and I was sitting looking at these beautiful red rocks, and I had asked for a message. And now, just after rereading it, it's even more appropriate for the topic tonight of why we love the Marvel movies, and any of the stories and books or movies that contain the elements of the hero's journey. And so let me backtrack a tiny bit. First of all, I love the Marvel movies too. And it's interesting, depending on where we are in our own life, we're going to relate to different characters in the movie more than others, right? So if you're watching movies like Harry Potter and Star Wars and Avatar and The Lord of the Rings and any pick a Marvel movie or DC movie that's out there, Justice League kind of thing, like, especially if you've seen them years and years ago and you watch them again, notice that you might be rooting for or relating with a different character than you did the last time. And that would be totally normal, because based on where you are in your own personal hero's journey of your own life, this will influence who you feel an affinity to when you're watching these different movies. So the hero's journey itself was a concept developed, I believe it was based on Carl Jung's work, but it was Joseph Campbell. Sorry about that. Still have a little Sedona brain going on. Joseph Campbell actually did an awful lot of study and writing, comparing religions and mythologies. And he started to notice that through all different cultures and different stories that were told, and the epic stories that were told, there seemed to be 12 distinct milestones or phases that the hero would go through. And so he codified that into this whole concept that he called the hero's journey. And it's really well worth doing a deep dive and reading and researching some of Joseph Campbell's work if you're unfamiliar with it, because he's was brilliant. And so I'm just going to quickly go through what the 12 phases are. But I see somebody has a question. So sure, Virgil, if you'd like, we can, before we dive into the details of Hero's Journey, what can I help you with tonight? I'm always happy to answer questions. That's part of the advantage, y'all, of being live on the chat. This way, if there is something that's on your mind or on your heart, or just a question that you have, whether it's a carryover from last week or something about tonight's topic, I'm more than happy to answer those questions as best I can. Okay. So he says, I read the comics as a kid. Spider-Man was okay, sure. Yep. I would agree. There was definitely, actually in several of the Marvel movies, there are aspects of the PTSD and how does somebody who goes through a tragedy or go through something that is rocking their world, whether it's war or not, right? If something bad happens, like, Bruce Wayne sees his parents murdered in front of him as a child, right? Or you have Spider-Man losing his uncle, and then eventually Aunt May too, but his uncle, very tragically. So a lot of times tragedy is one of the many calls to adventure. And so let's go through the 12 steps, and we'll see what what comes up as far as questions or phases. And as we go through the steps, what I would encourage y'all to do is see which one feels like this is where I'm at now. And by the way, it's not just a single pass through a hero's journey of the 12 steps. You can think of them as numbers on the clock, right? Well, after you get back to 12, what happens? We go back to 1 and we continue back around. So we may have a hero's journey in our life that takes us 10 years to complete, or 40 years to complete, or 3 weeks to complete, depending on what's happening. And then we have the opportunity to start a new journey at a different level, incorporating what we brought with us from and learned from our prior lesson or journey. All right, so the first part, step 1 or phase 1 of the hero's journey, is just the ordinary world, right? We're just living our life. We're getting up, we're doing our chores, we're eating our meals, we go to work, we run some errands, maybe come back, do some more chores, interact with other people. And then we kind of feel like, what's going on? We're not even that self-aware, right? We're just kind of in the grind, in the routine. We're just kind of going, not really, mattering too much what's happening, or thinking about too much what's happening. We're just on autopilot, right? So that's the ordinary world. That's where all the movies start. So if you think about, any of the movies you liked, Harry Potter movies or the Lord of the Rings or any of them, it's like they kind of tune in and everybody's just kind of at whatever their home situation is, right? And then there's a call to adventure. Something happens that will force or invite the hero or heroine to make a change, to leave that ordinary life behind and try something new, and to go on some sort of quest, right? They'll see something different. They'll hear something different. It's sort of like, oh, wait, I can do that. I think of like the Green Lantern, right? He sees the spaceship that crashes and he's like, okay, I was just coming back home from work and I see this alien come, crash, and he goes and he gets the ring, and then that's his call to adventure. But we always have the ability to refuse the call. We could go like, not me. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, he could have, the movie would have been really short, by the way, if he said, no, I'm refusing the call. I'm not going near that alien. I'm not taking his ring. I'm not doing any of that, right? Any of the movies, right? Harry Potter, when Hagrid finds him, right? And all of a sudden he realizes, like, wait a minute, there's some other world here besides this crazy family I'm living with the Dudleys and not Dudleys, I forget the last name. Anyway, but with that family that he had, right? So he could have said no, but again, would make a really short hero's journey there. But a lot of times we have opportunities that come our way where somebody says, hey, you know what? Why don't you quit your job and let's go start a company together? Or, hey, let's start a garage band and do that on the weekend and see what happens if we make some music. Or, hey, can you partner with me? We can do it part-time and but it's going to require a little extra effort. Or, hey, let's move. I feel like I don't want to live in this city anymore. I feel like we should be someplace else. Or let's take off for 2 months and go travel the world as best as we can and see where we land, right? I don't know how many of y'all went like backpacking through Europe or through the, train riding through the US or anything when you were younger, before you got that first big job after school and before the big job. But that's a call to adventure, like sowing your wild oats or getting out there and exploring and to see, what's been happening. So what typically happens, whether we're refusing the call or not, the next phase is meeting a mentor. Meeting somebody who's going to be encouraging us. So back to Star Wars, Luke meeting Yoda is like, okay, that's a mentor. That's a big moment, right? With some of the Marvel movies, like with Spider-Man and one of the more recent ones, he meets Tony Stark, right? Who's obviously Iron Man. And so it's like, oh, well, let me learn that. Or the Flash, when he's first learning how to harness his skills, and he gets tapped by the group to come and be part of this. And, he's like fawning all over Wonder Woman, right? Different people can become the mentor to help them figure out how to use and develop their powers in the movies, that we're watching. But we can also look at it as, how do we use and develop our gifts, our skills, our abilities, our interests, the things that really call out to our soul. So normally there'll be some sort of mentor or advisor or cheerleader who's there to help us figure out what's going on. Then the step is called crossing that first threshold. And that is where our hero and ourselves, we leave our comfort zone. We actually say, yep, I'm willing. I'm going to go out and start this journey. So it's Frodo who leaves the Shire in Lord of the Rings. He's like, okay, I'm going to leave this behind. Or Bilbo, if you go back to The Hobbit, right? Going back to, I love the Shire. I love my home. I love my books. I love my things, right? They love their lives. And yet Gandalf comes, and he's both the mentor as well as the person delivering the call to adventure, and says, come, I need you. Come with me. I have this task for you. I have this calling that you are ideally suited to answer. Come with me, right? And so they have to leave the everyday behind. They couldn't have the adventure if they stayed where they were. They had to be willing to cross the threshold and leave what was ordinary and take a chance, take a risk, and go for it in some way. Then what happens? Well, we have tests, we have allies, we have enemies. We basically are out there and we make friends and we face roadblocks. We meet our nemesis. We get tested, right? So Harry Potter, when he first goes to school, who does he meet? He meets Ron and Hermione, right? Who become his besties and friends throughout the series. But he also meets some other characters, right? He meets, what's the yellow, the blonde hair kid's name? Malfoy. He meets Malfoy, who is like his nemesis throughout, and somebody that's always poking him and prodding him. In Lord of the Rings, obviously, we have Sam, who becomes the friend and the comrade and the co-hero in a lot of ways of Frodo, right, in Lord of the Rings. So it's his buddy that goes with him. And then what happens? They meet Gollum. They meet this little creature that wants the ring, right? And it's going to try to, fool them and tease them and lead them astray so he can get the ring back, right? So there's different parts of the journey that, and there's sometimes multiple stories within the stories, right? Because you have Gandalf, who's going through his own hero's journey and getting back in touch and meeting the other wizards and working with the other wizards and having the bad wizard, imprison him and do things there, right? So sometimes there's multiple stories going on. Hey, Jackie, hi, I see there. And yes, Virgil, you're right. Spider-Man, sometimes, well, a lot of these people have borderline personality disorders, right? They embody, they have to go back and forth between, this is my day-to-day life, I'm Tony Stark, and then I'm Iron Man, right? And, he goes out there, right? And very narcissistic, a lot of them. But the narcissism in their case helped them develop a tremendous skill and persona and helps them focus some of their gifts. And then you have others that are very selfless. Like if you look at Wonder Woman, especially in the first couple, she just wants to help people, but she has to do it her way. And she thinks she has to do it alone, until then you have other people that come into her circle that help her and realize, hey, you're not alone with this. So it's really fun to think about what these movies, why they touch us so much and inspire us, is because we're living our own tamed down version of the same thing, right? So we have the tests, the allies, the enemies, and the tests, some of the tests are very explicit. You have to cross a certain river. You have to play wizard chess. You have to figure out how to, pass through a passage that's needs some sort of extra spell or something to get through, or the orcs are coming and you have to have a literal battle, or find the entrance to the cave and go run away, and figure out how can I avoid these guys and keep everybody safe, or passing through the bridges that have the trolls or the dragons or the evil nemesis that are going to come and get you, right? So there's always the tests, right? Or for going back to an oldie but goodie, Star Wars, one of Luke's first tests was to get his spaceship out of the muck, right? And he's trying to lift it with the Force, and Yoda's trying to coach him how to, and he's, oh, it's too much, it's too big. And Yoda's like, look how little I am. And look, I can do it. It's the power of the Force that is great. So don't get bogged down by how big or small you think that is, because when you get a call, and if you're the right person for that job and you're getting that call, you will have access to the energy, information, power, friends, whatever it is that you need to accomplish that. That's part of the setup that we see in the movies. And we should have that expectation of, okay, if I'm willing to go on this adventure and answer this call to adventure, I expect I'm going to have help, that gifts are going to come my way, I'm going to pass my tests, I'm going to have all that I need in order to be successful. Okay. And then, Virgil's bringing up the point about Batman. And and I just picked Marvel because that's just seems to be, it's a franchise that pumps out a bunch of movies, but you can even look at like Pixar, and you can look at something like Monsters, Inc., right? And you look at like, wow, Sully had his own hero's journey, right? Going through as this monster, trying to learn and find his voice and learn how to scare the kids, right? And whatnot. Anyway, so Batman, a lot of our heroes in many ways in their normal day-to-day life are anti-heroes, right? They're very dysfunctional, but part of their personality disorder, or part of the dissonance, cognitive dissonance that you're talking about there, Virgil, is because think about what they're trying to do and why they believe they had to have some sort of anonymity initially in order to do it, right? If it was common knowledge that Bruce Wayne was Batman, well, he probably couldn't do the philanthropy, and he probably couldn't function under the radar as much and do the good works as Batman if everybody knew, like, oh, wait a minute, this is the same person, right? So I think the setup in a lot of the comic book type ones is, you have Diana Prince during the day, Wonder Woman at night, right? Or whatever, right? They have their everyday persona, but that's also to inspire us, because if they didn't have an everyday persona, we wouldn't relate to them as much, right? If they didn't have a dark side, we also wouldn't relate to them as much, because who among us doesn't have a dark side of some sort, right? We all struggle at time. And right. So, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, the subject matter is great because it's the things that inspire us. And the more that we take it and use it and recognize where we are in the journey, we can be better prepared. So if we realize that, okay, the next step of the hero's journey after the tests and we meet our allies and our enemies, we approach the innermost cave. This is where we get closest to our goal, but it's also one of our biggest tests. It's the ordeal, right? It's where Luke goes into the cave and has this big battle with the enemy, only to have the mask fall off and it's himself, right? And he's having this battle with himself. And you're like, ooh, that's like trippy, right? But it's true. A lot of times we are our own worst enemy when it comes to that. But if we know that we're just about to have that moment of the ordeal, we can kind of roll up our sleeves and say, okay, I got it. I'm on my path. I answered the call to adventure. I have my mentor who coached me. I have some friends on the journey. I have, some tests that on the outside I have, but I have to pass my innermost tests. I have to be willing to figure out who am I and what am I willing to do, and to sort of exercise my personal demons in order to fully get the reward, to fully be empowered, to seize that sort of opportunity. So on the other side of the ordeal, which is our hero's biggest test yet, what happens on the other side of that? We get a reward. It's that light at the end of the tunnel. It's the, oh, now I know how to use the force, right? And he could start to do things that he couldn't do before. Or now I am able to cast the spells, right? If I'm Harry Potter, right? And I'm able to defeat the darkness, and I don't have to worry about Voldemort, and I can say his name with impudence because I'm not afraid anymore, because I know I have a certain power. And even though I'm a young kid, I can still take it on because I have friends, I have mentors. I am willing to put the work in and willing to make the sacrifices because of my love of those other people on the path, or because of the adventure that I know this is uniquely mine to do. How many times did Frodo wish he wasn't the one that had to be the ring bearer? But he was, and he knew that was part of his destiny that he accepted when he answered the call. If he blew off Gandalf in the beginning and said, you know what? No, I'm not leaving the Shire. Not me. Pick somebody else. Okay. Would have been a whole different story. We always have that choice, right? We can always refuse the call, but then we have to live the consequences of not having had the adventure. All right. So we get the reward. Then there's the road back. All right. So let's look at, let's see, what's a good one? Well, Lord of the Rings, right? So he finally gets, after 3 long trilogy movies, we get to the end, and he throws the ring into Mount Doom, and it melts away, and Sauron, the bad guy, is banished, and that's all done. Well, now what happens? There's a freaking volcano erupting all around him. Him and Sam are like in a lava flow, balanced on a rock, basically saying goodbye to each other, and like that's the end. We're thinking like, oh my gosh, our heroes are going to have this horrible end at this movie. And what happens? They have to make their way back home, but it's with help. In this case, the eagles swoop in, carry them, they bring them back to the Elven city where they get some, healing that they need, and eventually they find their way back to the Shire, and they're back to their lives. And there's some other adventures that happen there, as well, because once you get back home, and we have resurrected, so to speak, it's like, okay, I'm back home, but I'm different. Aren't you different after you go through one of these adventures? After you really challenge yourself and you put yourself out there and you go through all these steps, and you're like, wow, I'm not the same person I was as I was before. Okay. All right. So I have a quick question here. So the character interesting is the Joker. Okay. Well, you know what? So we have heroes that are on their hero's journey. And then we also have what I'll call the anti-hero. And those anti-heroes sometimes are people or characters that they're on their own agenda. Some of them started off as, as semi-heroes themselves, like Two-Face, right, in the Batman series. Before he had the accident, he was somebody that was the assistant DA, and he was out for good, and he was helping people. And then it was something happened, and that got all twisted. And yet a lot of these characters, even some of the villains, sometimes there's a change of heart. And right before they kind of repent, or their resurrection is, how can I make things better? Joker was kind of interesting to me, especially I think it was in one of the last ones where he has the girlfriend that's just as crazy as he is. And it's like, look, he found love. I mean, look how warped they are, and he breaks her out of prison at the end. And you're like, wow, isn't that amazing? That he's able to find some, even people that are highly dysfunctional in society can have their own version of a hero's journey and find love and go through all the steps and find support. And then they have their nemesis, and, they can have their own version of a happy ever after, and coming back home. And when we come back home, when we return with the elixir, when the hero returns home triumphant, there is this sense of sharing what the adventure was. What did you learn? What gifts did you get along the way that you can now share with other people? And then usually there's a little time for rest. And then you kind of revert back to whatever the new normal is going to be. And then you can get yet another call to adventure. You can get another round of, okay, so now that we know, that Harry, you went to school the first year and you had all these adventures and you made it through. And it's like, why do you think some of these books have, or these stories have, seven books in the series, or the Dune trilogy, or the Lord of the Rings trilogy, or the Star Wars, I don't know how many they're up to, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's like, okay, it's like where one chapter ends, they kind of go back to a normal, but then something else happens to call them out and say, hey, we need you again. Would you come on the adventure? Would you answer the call? We'll send you a new teacher. We'll give you new tools. You'll have different tests. You'll have different friends, or maybe the same ones, but sometimes new friends will come. New enemies and nemesis will come. So it's really important for us as we look at our own life, if we can figure out where we are and we're paying attention to our soul's purpose, and we're like, where am I on my hero's journey? And you know what? Have we been ignoring the call, and being frustrated, wondering why our soul doesn't feel fulfilled? It can give us some clarity and be like, oh, I get it. My soul's been trying to get me to go do this thing for years. And I've been like, la, 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 la. I don't want to do it. Right. And because I didn't do it, I didn't reap the learning, the growth, and the gifts that come from fulfilling that phase of the journey, that iteration, that round. So knowing where we're at can also help us. So if we're really struggling and we're like, God, why is this so hard? And why do I seem like there's so many tests here? Well, guess what? If you're in that test phase, by definition, there has to be help around. There has to be mentors that can give you some clues. There have to be other people that can be not necessarily paving the path, but pointing the direction and going, they went that way, or these are not the drones you're looking for, and help you sneak in if you have to get in someplace. So let's see. Yeah. So Virgil makes a good point here. He's saying the commonality seems to be damaged upbringing and early trauma. Well, I would say for some of the superheroes, yes, for sure. Some, like, I think back to the Wonder Woman movies, like she grew up on this like idyllic island with all these Amazonian type women, that had this amazing society and trained. And it wasn't until she met Steve when his plane came and crashed in, and then she decided to leave. But the call to adventure in that case was somebody needed help and opened her eyes to a world she didn't know existed, right? So sometimes our heroes can have very idyllic types of upbringings, and then something about the real world shatters or wakes them up into their call to adventure, which she could have been like, no, Steve, you just go back. I'm staying here on the island. It's all good, right? Again, would have made a really short movie, right? So, but I think you're right there, Virgil. I think that for many of us, honestly, that we have the archetype called the wounded healer for a reason. Most people that go into the field of healing had some sort of drama, trauma, pain that they needed healing for themselves. And from that place, when they started finding healing, they're like, oh, well, I should now help others, right? Trauma can help build resilience and build character and help you be more attuned to spirit and the promptings of the guides that are the guides and the angels and benevolent interdimensional beings and our loved ones in spirit that are trying to help us, that they are able to work with us and help us through those things and train us to be able to hear them and feel them and understand where they're leading. So I think in general, life, the things that we go for in life, we either go for the stick or the carrot, right? The carrot is like, oh, I want that, I want that, I want that. I'm going to go after that. I'm going to work hard till I get it. The stick is ow, 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 ow. That hurts. Stop that. Okay, I'll move already. Where do I need to go? What do I need to do? Most effective ones are a combination of both. I know what I want. I'm trying to move out of the discomfort to get better where I want to get to. And so for many people, that the drama, trauma, challenges is really what helps them have that sense of compassion, a sense of resiliency, a sense of not being alone, because usually they received some sort of help, physical or non-physical, to get them through those challenges. And they wound up having gifts on the other side, kind of completing their own circle of the hero's journey there, of returning with the elixir. They come back home triumphant. They overcame the challenge. They survived and thrived despite the craziness of whatever situation they grew up in. And by the way, many souls that are in a service mindset agree and are complicit with allowing us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to go through the drama and trauma because it serves a purpose. So I shared some stuff in past episodes with y'all. I did not have the ideal upbringing. I went through many hells in my life and challenges in my life. And I had tremendous help from spirit and encouragement, and struggled a lot and finally got through. And I didn't just survive, I learned how to thrive. And when I prayed on it and meditated on it and pondered it, what I got from spirit was, your soul agreed for you to go through all those hells and horrible experiences, so it would develop within you a compassion for others. It would help you learn not to be judgmental, to help you have forgiveness and love, both for yourself and for others, and to be able to truly help and be of service to more people. Because if you have a life that it was like, oh yeah, it was a perfect family and a perfect upbringing and everything was always fine and no one ever died and nobody ever got hurt and nobody ever said a mean or nasty thing and nobody was abusive and nobody was whatever, make your list, I would probably not be as resourceful and would not have been drawn into so many different fields of healing and psychic development and spiritual development and where are all the tools that I can get in the toolkit, both to help myself as well as to help others, if life was just easy peasy, peaceful, and no rocking of the boat. I mean, I had boats sink, many times my boat freaking sank. I had to swim, figure out where the hell am I, and to get back to a point. And when I would look back at it, I would say, how in the world did my soul agree to this kind of craziness? I can't believe it. But if you go a little bit further into the future and look back, you're like, oh, I get it. I am a much better person today for having gone through the hells and the challenges and the drama and the trauma that I did early in life. But part of the key is not getting stuck in the quicksand, guys, right? We've talked about this before. We can't wallow in it. We can't stay stuck. We need to either ask for help or find a way out and then say, okay, that was like a major, major disruption. That was a major just derailment of where I thought I was going. What do I need to do to get back on track now? What can I do to bring me one step closer to the me I was becoming? And I know I can become, but I'm just not there yet. What's one decision I can make or action I can take that will bring us to closer to what we're trying to manifest, to the fullest expression of our soul? Oh, thank you, Virgil. Very kind. Hard work. I think my grandmother said this years ago, and I didn't understand it until now, when probably her age, when she told me. But she said, hard work is its own reward. And I never understood that. I'm like, yeah, I want things easy. Right? We all want things easy. But you know what? when you put the hard work in, when you figure it out, when you solve the problems, when you rise to overcome the challenges, something changes. And you're like, wow, I can do that. There's a confidence, a quiet confidence that comes, and a connection with spirit where you're like, wow, I can trust my intuition. It really helped me get through. And remember, intuition is that coherence between our intellect, our mind, our feelings, our heart, and our knowings, that gut, the coherence between mind, heart, and gut, listening to the promptings of spirit, listening to those who guide and love us, those mentors that show up, those helpers that show up, can help us get through and train us so that not only can we get through the tough times, we can supercharge and kick ass the good times, bring things up to that next level. So if you're rocking and rolling through your life and you're like, yeah, I'm successful in business, I have good relationships, I got a great family, I love my home, mostly I love my life, awesome. Can you make it better? What would make it better? Right? So once we get through all of the problem solving phase and we get to a certain amount of, hey, this is pretty good, how can you supercharge it? How can you bring it to the next level? For me, my next level is the next show I'm going to be doing, right? So I'm going to start a morning show called Grace in the Grind to reach out to people that may be not as spiritual as you all tuning into this one, but kind of help plant some seeds of, what do we have to do to get through the grind? What are all the life coaching things that we have to do to manage and get through things? And one of the things to think about, oh, thank you. A minute here. One of the things to think about is all of the blessings and tools and the things that we've gotten along the way. How can we then use them to help others? Right? So anyway, doing that morning show for me is going to increase my impact, I hope, right? So for me, what's my next level? How do I supercharge my life? I want more and more people to be tuning in so I can feel that satisfaction of knowing I've made a positive impact on these lives today. That's my legacy. I don't have kids. I have what I have, right? I'll leave it to friends or family, but I don't have somebody that I can train and give all, pour myself into individually. So through the beauty of social media, through this platform of the podcasts, through the workshops that I do in person, I'm able to pour myself and my knowledge and experiences, my philosophies and passion into you all, and hopefully make a difference that way, right? I want to make a difference. I want to be at a point where I know at the end of the day, I was kind, I was loving, I shined my light, I shared my love, I shared my gifts. And because I interacted with you in some way, your life was a little bit better. Your pains and your burdens were eased a little bit. That to me is the best we can ask for, is to make a difference in the life of other people. And so for me as a teacher, as a podcaster, as a life coach, the more people who know about me, the more I get out there, the more I'm living and fulfilling my purpose. So I really appreciate when y'all share and like and tell your friends and tune in, and that to me helps me accomplish my goals. And I hope some of the things that I talk about and teach and share will help you hone in and figure out what's my goal. What's my purpose want to do? What's my call to adventure that I might have been going la 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 and not listening or hearing. And know that you have not just me, but you have many, many, many of the hosts and the family of this whole paranormal network are your cheerleaders saying, yeah, go for it, dude. Go for it, lady. If this is something that is calling to you, give it a shot. My dad used to say, and he was in the Navy, so he had that adventuresome spirit and loved to travel and love people like I do. But he would say, go for it whenever you can, because you'll never regret going for it. Even if you fail, you'll never regret the effort of going for it. What you'll regret is not trying. It never hurts to ask. The worst that can happen is the universe can say no. But going for the things that are really important to you, that's what makes a difference. Okay. So I want to go through the lessons for today as far as messages that came from the cards. And they really fit in quite well, which I love Spirit because this tends to happen. They really seem to fit in well with the whole topic for tonight. So the first card, the angel card that came up was aspiration. And it says, it's time to set your sights higher. If you are settling for the mediocre, aim for the superb. Stretch yourself to fulfill all your potential and hold mighty visions. Find the wisdom within you that enables you to aspire to the great and the glorious, and then expand your comfort zones so that you can explore your dreams. Doesn't that sound like answering your call to adventure? These angels, boy. Then, I love it. Next angel card is, there's nothing to worry about, right? Don't be making excuses like, oh, I heard that call to adventure, but I can't go. Why? No, there's nothing to worry about. You are safe. And all situations are under the perfect control of divine providence and universal order. Only infuse loving thoughts and emotions into these situations to ensure that the highest possible outcome flows effortlessly to and through you. Okay, right? So it's like, go for it. And then realization. Realize that you can receive clear answers. Your mind is larger than just your thoughts. Open it even further and grasp the greater truth. You are light. That is realization. Okay. And I also chose 3 tarot cards. And so they kind of fit in as well as far as I'm concerned. So the first one was the past, Page of Cups. We're just dealing with what we have, right? Yeah, I'd like to get better wine. This glass with a fish in it, who cares? Yeah, it's a little fishy tasting, but I don't want to bother going out. I don't have to go anywhere else. This card represents complacency and not really feeling satisfied with what you had, but not being willing to take the bulls by the horn and say, okay, I'm going for it. All right. What's happening now? The Lovers card. So the Lovers, this isn't strictly about a primary love relationship. This is the attitude of love that is pervasive and how you approach all of the people as well as the opportunities with this openness, curiosity, being in the moment, that playfulness of a child, that joyfulness, that enthusiasm that comes like when you're just in love for that first time, or when that new phase of a relationship, when you're just in that, wow, can it get any better than this phase, right? It's taking that energy and applying it to that call to adventure, taking that confidence that you have and knowing that this is the right person for this moment. It may not be for the rest of your life, but for this moment, this is what's showing up. Enjoy the ride, see where it leads. And then the last card is the Two of Rods, which is a card that talks about making choices. Do I stay or do I go? How do I go? Who do I trust? What do I need? Using your intuition again, and this is the elevated view of intuition. It's that coherent mind, heart, gut synthesis, that partner, that tripod, those whole team rowing your boat and helping you get there. Using that as you go forward on your version, on your journey, is what's going to help and get you further along the journey more gracefully, able to pass your tests more gracefully, able to seize the gifts and embrace the gifts and the powers that are yours for having had the courage to go and answer that call to adventure. So that's kind of the messages that have come out from the angels today. I am so grateful that you all have tuned in. I really hope that you take yourself more seriously with the longings of your heart, the desires of your soul, And that when opportunities pop up, especially those that are out of the blue, that you truly consider and be a yes person to the universe. And instead of trying to find reasons why to say no or excuses why you can't, stretch yourself to see what's possible and say, okay, well, what's the worst thing if I go for it? Let's just go for it. Let's just give it a try. Because if it's something that has always been in the back of your mind of, gee, I always want to try this, or gee, I wonder if, and this opportunity shows up, you owe it to yourself to go for it. And in some ways, think of what would be the advice that you would give your best friend or your sister or brother if they had that call, if they had that longing in their heart, if they had that desire of their soul, and an opportunity came up. How would you encourage them? What kind of words would you say? Would you say to them, oh, no, stay, play it safe, don't bother, no, don't follow your dreams, live a boring life. At least you have security. Maybe. What the true security is in the world? Being as adaptable and resilient and able to go with the flow as possible. So if one thing falls away, okay, I still have a tool belt with 10 other things. I'll figure it out. Sometimes change is inconvenient. Sometimes change is thrilling and exciting because it's leading us ever closer to what we're trying to manifest. I have this really cool little technique that I want to share with you all to kind of wrap up the show for tonight. And it is, how to know if a decision or an action that you're taking is going to be helpful in getting what you want. So take a moment and visualize, imagine the life you want to be living, the home you want to be living in, the people you want to be around, the activities you want to be doing. Just kind of get a snapshot just for a moment. Allow yourself to daydream. And if you're driving or operating a vehicle, do it with your eyes open and still pay attention to what you're doing. But just let a part of you come along for the ride, or make a mental note to do it later. Stay safe, y'all. So imagine what that looks like. So, and you can look at something really simple like, okay, let's imagine this beautiful home, this beautiful place. So you have this whole thing you want to manifest. Link it to a very simple picture that's a little weird. Imagine a giraffe with a pink tutu around its neck. That is going to represent, just for now, and you can pick something else later if you want. That's going to represent all of those things that you're trying to manifest, all those other moving parts. But we're just going to look at one thing. So now an opportunity comes to you. Travel to a place, take on a new project, work with this person, whatever it is. Consider whatever that opportunity or proposition is. And while you're considering it, notice what's happening to your picture of your giraffe with the pink tutu around its neck. Is that picture getting so clear you can actually see the lines and the splotches and the pattern of the giraffe, or you can see the fabric of the tutu? Or is the picture getting fuzzier and harder to see, or feeling like it's moving away from you? If it's getting clearer and closer, seeming more real, whatever that question or decision was that you were asking and pondering when you were seeing it, it's a good thing to help get that reality you're trying to manifest. If instead the picture is kind of getting fuzzy or getting distant, or you can't even see it anymore, then that thing that you're considering is going to derail, or at least delay, the things that you're trying to manifest. So you can make more informed choices, even if you can't like plot out the whole road. I take step 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, D, and finally I get there, right? Maybe we can't track out that everything, but we can keep the end in mind, link it to a really simple picture, and then ask ourselves with each question, each potential job shift, move shift, person in our life, does that help me manifest what I want? Easier, better, clearer, faster. If the answer is yes, go for it. If the answer is no, then you have to step back and say, am I willing to sacrifice what I've been working for, what I want to manifest? Okay. So that's just a little shortcut. That's like the abbreviated version of an hour exercise I did during the retreat this week. But I wanted to share it because it was like, oh, it's hard for people to hold, and myself to hold, all the different things I'm trying to manifest in mind while I'm considering a question. So you link it to something that represents all those things and see what happens to that representation, that symbol. So that technique is one I'll probably include in a book someday, but I wanted to share it with you all tonight so you can use it and play with it, and hopefully it'll help you. All right, y'all, we're at the hour again. Boy, the time goes flying by so fast. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining me. I really appreciate your encouragement. I love the chats. I love the questions. Please do share with others, and remember your homework. And this will always be the same, but it bears repeating. Be kind to yourself and to others. Be forgiving and loving of yourself and others. Do the best you can to do the best you can in every moment. Have a positive impact on the lives of others. Make your life matter. Make your time and energy, your words and your actions, something that you feel proud of, that you know are helping others. You are alleviating pain, easing burdens, adding love, adding joy, adding peace. Be the light in the world that you can be. Fulfill the purpose of your soul to the fullest measure of creation possible. Thank you so much again for joining us. Keep an eye out for the announcement for Grace in the Grind. We might get it out next week, probably more likely the week after that, just because of everything that's going on. But keep an eye out for that in the morning show. And please do come on back to the next episode of our Spiritual Street Talk with Alethea. That's me. Thanks again for joining us. Love y'all. Have a fabulous week. Take care. Okay. And now we get back to the technical part and trying to figure that out. And I think it's this button. Let's see.
Coming to a YouTube channel near you.